All right. So I just want to observe that it's interesting how in the core course we're taught to recognize loss frame and gain frames. And in this conversation, the loss frame was what the coach was trying to bury and move the client into a gain frame. So that metaphor of recognizing the loss and gain frame and really flipping it and moving it into a gain frame, I thought was masterfully done.
Cool. I'd like to go next. You know, we always talk about the coach being the expert in the process and allowing for the client to be the expert in their content. And I think this was such a fantastic demonstration of the coach really taking charge of the coaching process to ensure that the client was moving through moving through along this coaching journey. And, you know, at some points, the coach was very directive to, to create an agreement with the client in that moment and move the client forward. But for me, this conversation really just reinforces the coach is the expert in the process and the client is the expert in the content.
Hi. My contribution is about the coach's partnership with the client very, very strong. And in the whole conversation, it's very obvious that the coach was there with the client and be with the client even the time that the client is was in the muddy water, and then the coach just, okay, let's move forward, move on positively, direct to the positive and possible, and be with the client all the time, support the client. And that makes the conversation very beautifully move forward and very firm and strong. So this is what I'm observing.
I would like to add in a bit also. I think like Ben is indeed like the master coach I really admire. So, and also I do recognize his playfulness in there as well. So it was such a heavy conversation from the beginning. The client was actually very heavy and bearing a lot of heavy loads, and to really recognize herself and to really accept what other people was judging and what she was actually expecting. But along the way that the coach carefully hold this perception and hold the client along the way, the moment the client break through this evoke angel, I couldn't help but see how beautiful that the smile actually the client turned up. And then actually Ben actually playfully put in this like, what should you bury? And also to remind again, say, oh, there is a joke that actually those are the dead bodies to pick up, and make the clients really aware of what are the things that she still couldn't really fully bury the things. So with along the way that there's a little fun things come in, there's very tight space hold it for the client to move forward. And also it's a very beautiful journey. So it's something like I have learned a lot and really appreciate that. Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joanna, go ahead.
Thank you. In the core training, we have been talking about that the client needs sometimes to preparation, some time for slow down. In this conversation, the coach offered some time before to begin the conversation, and after 5 or 10 minutes, the coach come back to give the space to slow down, to support them, to take a breath and slow down. That means that sometimes the client needs more time. Not all the clients are the same. And here we have been seeing that the client needs more time to slow down and to begin to be in the conversation. And I think that the coach did in a very amazing way.
All right, for me, I think the power of observation and that masterfulness that I really saw when the coach observed the head dancers and then separated by offering metaphors like dead bodies, and then even the observation went into the level of forgiveness as a thing to forgiving, being forgiving. So that's the power of level of observation that I saw in this discussion. And then again, like I was really enjoying that how part by part the coach drew out, like, okay, forgiveness one time and humility one time. So, and with the humility, to be friend with the humility. How far is that friendship? So it's very artful, and then the level of observation is so high. I think this is as what we teach from the level 1, observe, and then towards more artfulness. It's a combination of all that we saw in this, and we saw the client shifting with that. Thank you. Back to you.
Okay, Evan, this is Abiola. I think what I observed and what I really liked about the conversation is the use of metaphors and the way it removed the client from the situation, the critical thinking space, and really gave the client a new lens of seeing the situation and observing who she is in the situation. And the power of metaphor really helps the conversation to flow in a different direction. Like we saw the thought-provoking impact of what the metaphor brought and made the client to be more reflective. I know that metaphors are more used in the advanced and master's level, but it really brought the conversation to show fluidity, you know, in the partnering, the way they danced together, they were on the same page. And the client was totally removed from the situation, and she saw herself in clear terms. That was the beauty of this conversation.
Thank you, Abiola. Go ahead. Yeah. So what I really appreciate about this conversation is the space, again, created by the coach today, and how he prepared that space to become a comfortable and a trusting space for the client where she can share openly, especially that she's kind of going to an unknown space for herself, where it's uncomfortable, as she mentioned. It's enjoyable but scary, however resourceful. Those are the words of the client. So how he prepared, how he, it's like a sacred space that he created for the client before we tap into that space. So that I really appreciate a lot. Yeah, thank you.
I was thinking during this conversation that it was giving me a feeling of the coach being like a surgeon with the precision. So you cannot afford as a surgeon to make any go around on, you know, you have to go directly to that point that is essential for the client. And so I was, for me, it was a demonstration of direct communication. And so the coach was able to be so present and attentive and listening at such a level that was able to bring in the conversation for the client the essential things. And then allow the client the space to think and to really reflect and go there deep inside where she can find the answers. So yeah, for me it was a really demonstration of this direct communication that I think that always impressed me with Ben from the very beginning. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I could add
I'd
something.
just like to...
Okay.
Sorry, you go ahead, Joan.
Okay, thank you, Joe. One of the things that is emphasized at level 1 in the training is the aspect of bulleting. That the more you're able to bullet aspects that stand out, the better you enable your client to make sense of what you're hearing. And I think in today's demonstration, we realized that Ben did quite a lot of bulleting, and then coupled with the cumulative listening that we are taught at the advanced level, that you should be able to track throughout the conversation. This was masterfully demonstrated, and I thought that, yeah, that was something that kind of, played out nicely. And then the way the coach was then picking up on those elements that had been earlier communicated in the conversation, the way he pulled out the humility piece. And yet here we were at the point of forgiveness, like Jay mentioned, and said, there was a piece on forgiveness, and then forgiving others, and this high, another piece, this high expectation of self. It was kind of an interesting thing to see play out. And then the way the words were being used in terms of, okay, fine, you want him to forgive, but also giving the forgiveness, but also the other aspect of, there's the act and then the piece around it. So yeah, I thought going back to just remember that when in level 1, there is a lot of emphasis on bulleting. That is a powerful tool that is very unique to CMA in terms of bullet that we need to run with.
Thank you, Joan. Something that really struck me was how the coach was able to really notice with such clarity what the client was experiencing, and actually with a lot of love and a lot of humor, able to really point that out to the client. And through doing that, the client was actually able to slow down because the coach was helping her to see herself. And then he was able to bring in such humor, where I was so pleased that I was on mute because I was just laughing. So I loved the humor coupled with the noticing of what the client was experiencing and having the warmth to be able to point that out.
Fantastic. Big thank you to all our faculty for their reflections, their insights, and what they observed from the conversation. Whatever level you're at coaching, you're bound to walk away with something meaningful from that. Now, at this point in